Welcome everyone to panel 2 on subrecipient contracting determinations. I'm joined today by Kim Moreland, who's the Associate Vice Chancellor for Research and Sponsored Programs, Kraus, the Director of Grants Accountability and Transparency at the State of Illinois, and Merril Oliver, the Director of the Grants Governor Office at the State of Maryland. So welcome everyone.
Thank you.
All right, so before I turn it over to you all for questions, I'm just gonna regroup and talk a little bit about what's actually required in the uniform guidance, or what the uniform guidance says about the importance of the subrecipient contractor determination. So the uniform guidance in section 200.330 basically reaffirms what was in the previous guidance in Circular A133 regarding this difference between subrecipients and contractors. Essentially, it just matters it's the nature of the relationship that matters the most. And the importance of this determination, it's very important, this determination, because it invokes additional requirements if it's determined to be a subaward, and the pass-through and subrecipients are at risk if the wrong determination is made. Also worth noting is that this determination needs to be made no matter what level the subaward is.
So, Rhea, one of the issues that keeps coming up in some of the confusion is that if a sub is a fixed award, it's considered a contract for purposes of applying the uniform guidance.
Yeah, well, so I'm happy that you brought that up because we hear that one a lot at OMB. That is incorrect. It doesn't matter what you call the award. It's the nature of the relationship. So if the purpose of the award is to carry out a portion of the grant, it's essentially a subaward. That's kind of the basic determination. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you all with some questions. Kim, you bring the university perspective.
Yes.
What are some of the primary differences that you see between a contract and a subaward?
Well, I do think this is a place where the uniform guidance laid out the rules very clearly. And they are much the same rules that we had in the past, but in those days we called a contractor a vendor rather than a contractor. So the language has changed a little bit. All of this is derived from the Federal Grants and Cooperative Agreements Act of 1976, if anyone wants to look it up, which very clearly lays out the differences between a grant and a cooperative agreement, both of which are federal assistance actions, and a contract, which is a procurement action. So the uniform guidance very clearly stays to that pathway. And we are given a set of tests in the guidance to help us navigate the determination between those two. The first real issue, I would say, not to make a lengthy list here, is there going to be programmatic activity performed by the subrecipient? That is, are they going to contribute to the intellectual life that leads to a successful conclusion of the objectives laid out in the federal award? That would be the primary test, I think. The other tests all fall under that. Is there a determination made by the pass-through entity that is in fact a financial assistance action rather than a contractor? We also want to know if the subrecipient, in this case, is subject to carrying out the activities laid out in the proposal for an award. And a big question for some of the recipients: do I have to adhere to the federal regulations and compliance requirements that come along with this award? If you are a subrecipient on a financial assistance award, then the answer is yes. You are subject to the same compliance activities as if you were the primary recipient of the award. On the contractor side, we'll switch over there without going through all of this. The issue really is, do you offer those same goods or services to anybody who's interested in purchasing them? So in this case, it is part of your commercial operations to sell these goods or services to whoever might want them. There is no particular relationship that lends itself towards the programmatic objectives in a contractor relationship. In a sense, it's almost easier to see what a contractor is because those are the people we buy things from online or in person in a number of cases. But I think that both Carol and Merril are going to speak to the fact that it's very important to get this determination right. And I'll just mention while I'm talking here that there is a contractor determination form. It's very simple. I know you will present a little more complex. There's a very simple form that universities typically use on the Federal Demonstration Partnership website. And it basically asks all the questions that are in the uniform guidance, asks for any commentary that might change it, and let you go forward from there. Enough on that?
All right, thank you, Kim. So, Carol, I know you have an audit background, actually.
Yes, I do.
Yes, and I just want you to speak a little bit to the impact of if there's an incorrect determination, or really the importance of this determination.
There is a lot of different impacts on an incorrect determination, one of which is an audit finding where you could potentially have to pay back the money on the contract because you didn't do the subrecipient monitoring. Another point that needs to be brought out is that a lot of places will call things a contract, number one, so they think that they're not subject to the uniform guidance, and also that they're not required to pay indirect costs to the subrecipient, both of which are big misconceptions because you are still required to follow those, even though you made that misdetermination, can really cause you a lot of problems in an audit. As a prior auditor, I wrote this finding a lot, where people misinterpreted and called things contracts. And I know, Kim, you had mentioned that there was an issue that you faced in your university setting of an audit finding that came about because of.
We did, Carol, and I wouldn't talk about it except it had a happy ending in that the finding was reversed. But it was this very situation that you have indicated, where we classified a procurement relationship as a vendor or contractor, but when the government came in, they felt there might be some programmatic relationship. The difference was significant because it was a very large contract for a couple of $1 million. And when we classified this entity as a contractor, we paid full F&A on the purchasing. If it had been classified as a subrecipient, we would have only been paying F&A on the first $25,000. So there was a significant monetary difference as far as the government was concerned.
Okay, great. So Merril, I understand that the state of Maryland has some tools and techniques that you all use when making this determination, if you just don't mind telling everyone about those.
Yes, so I would invite everyone to go out to the Maryland Governor's Grants Office website at grants.maryland.gov. We have a number of tools there. One most recently was developed in partnership with the AGA and OMB Intergovernmental Partnership, and it is the Contractor Subrecipient Vendor Determination Tool. It's an easy checklist that we crosswalked against the Uniform Guidance language. So every step of the way you can refer directly to the Uniform Guidance in answering the questions that lead to your determination.
All right, great. So we have a little bit of time left. Any advice that you all can offer an organization when they're grappling with what the difference is between a sub and a contract?
Well, I'll just say quickly that actually I think this is easier on the university side than it is for the states. And of course, we don't handle the same amounts of money you do. But we also tend to be performing research operations. And it's really very easy to tell who's contributing to the research outcomes as opposed to who is simply selling us something.
On the state side, I would say that there are some gray areas given some of the services that we perform using grant funds. So the determination can be falling into the gray area. So we really focus in Maryland on providing training, not just to our subrecipients, but to our pass-through agencies across the entire government.
Okay. And in Illinois, we require anyone that's going to be asking for an exception, and in this case calling it a contract, has to go to a pre-approval process, and the determination is then required to be made public of what the requirements are that the recipient of that funding is required to abide by, so that everybody's clear on what their roles are and what their responsibilities are.
All right, Great. So thank you, everyone. I would just like to mention that the tools that were mentioned during this panel, the FDP tool and the AGA tool, there will actually be links posted along with this webcast on the COFAR website. And we'll also be talking a little bit more about subrecipient monitoring capabilities and panel responsibilities in panel 3. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.